Hello, my name is Roy Simpson, professor of mathematics at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento, California. In this video, I'm going to show you how to compute what you need for the remainder of the course to pass your math class, or actually any of your classes. So the first thing you're going to do is go to your Canvas course, and under the grades here, you just click on that, and you'll see a big list of assignments. And obviously this is not going to be for your class, it's for my students, but this will work for yours as well. You can see the weights on your assignment categories right here, and that it totals to 100%. That's going to be important for us in a few moments. Now, there is a what if feature in Canvas that you're welcome to use, but I find that if you have a lot of assignments, which my students do, you can find that this would be overwhelming to do the what if thing here. So instead of doing what if analysis here, I'm just going to take a look at my current grade, or grades I should say, in each category. So notice at the bottom of this entire list, you have all the categories that are listed in your initial weights. So the groups are homework, exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, another exam, a final exam. And you can see the percentages or the weights there. In fact, let me go ahead and write that down. Here I've just written down or typed out the weights for each category. I'm going to use that to refer to something later on. Now I'm going to go ahead and write down my fictitious students' current weights in their categories. So I'll type this out very quickly. All right. So as you're looking at this, these are actually this fictitious student's current grades in homework, exam 1, exam 2. They do not know, because they haven't taken exam 3, they don't know their score in exam 3 or exam 4. Now, let me just say, prior to finishing this out, that there is a more common situation where your instructor will likely have a grading structure that looks more like the following. All right, so maybe your class has something like this, where all your exams, exam 1, exam 2, exam 3, is in one bucket. I'll talk about that in a moment, but right now I'm going to address my students, and then I'll come back at the end and talk about what happens in general. All right, so here we have where we are at this point in the course. Remember, the weights are up above. What we're going to do is go ahead and create an equation. We want to know if our final grade is going to be greater than a certain percentage, not knowing these pieces right here. We don't know what these three categories are going to be as far as our final grades are going to be, but we'll just call those X's. And we'll assume, by the way, that those grades will be the same, that we'll get X% on the third exam, fourth exam, and the final exam. We'll also assume another thing about the homework category, or if you have it, a quiz category. We will assume that the homework category will remain static. In other words, our current performance will be our future performance. If I'm 80%er on homework, I will likely be that way for the rest of the semester. Exam 1 and exam 2 are static because we've already taken those, we're done with those, and that's that. So how do you compute your final grade? Now, honestly, this is a question that most students should be able to do prior, actually, to reaching transfer level, but I can't help but get students every semester who ask the same question, even if they're in calculus, that they'll say, what do I need on the final two exams and the final exam to pass the course? And the answer is, if you can't compute that, or if you can't do that, you shouldn't pass the course, honestly, if you're at a transfer level. But a lot of students just don't know how to build the equation. So let's go ahead and build the equation. To make the math a little simpler, or at least the build a little bit simpler, I'm going to place a little bit of room here between so that I can showcase the mathematics. Now, we know that 10% of our grade, which is 0.1 as a decimal, is our homework, and we currently have 79.93%. Plus, we know that 9% of our grade is given to exam 1, and we have 65% on that. And we know that 20% of our grade goes to exam 2, and we have a 0.5246 on that, or 52.46% on that. And then we know the remainder of our grades, which is 20% plus 18% plus 23%, which is, what is that, 40, 50, 61%. We don't know what that's going to be. We'll call that X. Again, that goes with my yellow highlighting here. We have X%. And in the end, we want this to be, let's pretend, greater than or equal to 70%. Now you would just solve that inequality. Let's go ahead and do this. So this means to pass this course, I would need a 74.86% on the remainder of the exams if I had these grades right here currently. Of course, if I wanted something greater than 70%, let's say I was shooting for a 90% in the class, I would change that to a 9, this to a 9, and then when I subtract from both sides, I get the following. Which means that I would need to score 107% on the remainder of the exams. That is not possible. It is fairly possible for me to score 74% on everything. If I was already scoring around an 80% on homework, maybe possible if I was scored near to a 60 or 70% on the first exam and a 52% on the second exam. But note, even getting a 74, I haven't established a pattern that showcases I have that ability. But let's just let you know it is somewhat doable, but in this case, to get an A, that's not going to happen. I need 107%, and nowhere have I shown that skill. Now, let me go ahead and move to what most people actually have, which is when they have a homework bucket, a quiz bucket, an exam bucket, and a final exam bucket, and I will still use my same data here. So let me grab this and move this down here. I'll leave some space as well so we can see the computations. And let's see. Now, I know that, so the computations are going to be basically the same, very similar, I should say, with one exceptional difference. So let's see. I know that 5% of my grade is homework, and I currently have 0.7993% on that. I also know that my quizzes, now let's just pretend, let's make believe here that I have a quiz category and my quizzes I have an 80% on, just to make my computation easy here. So let's go ahead and go here. So I know that quizzes are worth 10% of the total grade, and I have an 80% on my quizzes. I feel pretty happy about that. And now let's go to the exams. And the exams are a little trickier. All you really need to do, if your exams are equally weighted, which most people do that honestly, is if you know you have 4 exams and it's worth 60% total, you would take that 60% and divide it by 4 to get 15% per exam. So then I would go ahead and just say, all right, well, 15% of my grade was my first exam, and I got, whoops, that's not 15%, sorry about that. And I got what did I get on that first exam? 65%. And then again, 15% of my grade is my second exam. And on that second exam, I got 0.5246 or 52.46%. The remaining 2 exams, I have no idea what I'm going to get, but I'll call that X. So the remaining 30% of my grade there, because 15% each, will be 30% X, and then my final exam, which is 25% of my grade, I still don't know what that is, but I want that total score to be greater than or equal to 70%. And again, you would just do the same mathematics here. It's just that your exam bucket, you had to manually split that. So let's go ahead and compute this out. And this tells us that I would need to get a 73.43% average on the next 2 exams and the final exam. And this is how you compute what you need to get in the future exams to pass your course, again, in both situations. This will work for every single course that you're in, as long as they tell you ahead of time what each bucket or how much each category or each bucket is worth. So I recommend that you go through and do this at this time, mainly because of the situation we're in. You are allowed to withdraw without really hurting you. So this is just a good idea to double check.